he couldn't do any more swimming. And he was either, well, maybe he fell off a horse rather than a porch. I'm not sure, but there was a horse in the vicinity, and looking back, that meant possibility of tetanus. So I guess he had to get a shot. If they knew about tetanus at that time, I guess they did. That might have been about 1928 or 29.
When did you finally learn how to swim?
Pretty soon after that.
Self-taught.
I never was great at it, but I could, well, I had to swim 100 yards to get first class scouts, and longer, I think, to get Eagle. So I got to be a fair swimmer, I guess.
So was your father a World War I veteran?
No, he didn't have to go. I guess both of us, Aunt Mary Virginia and I, had been born before. No, we were born after the war.
Yeah.
I don't know why he didn't have to go, but apparently he didn't. Did they have selective service then
Yeah.
in World War I?
Yes. Yeah.
Toward the end of the war.
Yeah. They started that. They were drafting people for the Civil War.
Oh, that's right, they did, didn't they, Dick?
So what do you remember about your dad?
Not as much as I like to. I know that he used to like to listen to the radio, and he particularly liked Moran and Moran and Mac, who billed themselves as the Two Black Crows. It was black minstrel type humor.
Kind of like Amos and Andy?
Yeah, only not quite as gentle, I don't think.
Not quite as gentle?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was earlier in the game. They came along maybe 10 years before
Mm-hmm.
Amos and Andy. Buck Rogers started about that time. You don't remember that, do you?
Well, I remember Buck Rogers, but no, I don't remember the radio
Oh.
series back in the 30s.
Well, this wasn't a radio series. This started out as a comic strip.
Oh,
I had a stack of Buck Rogers about that high at one time. We didn't have much to do.
comic books. Wow. I know you used to have fits if you saw us with comic books. Of course, we, got Mad Magazine. That was a little different tenor.
Yeah, I didn't much care for that. I didn't much care for it for you guys either.
Not much for satire, huh? Well, anyway,
What did you say?
not much for satire,
No.
huh? I remember you telling us once too, and we still have the copy of it. I think it's still in the plastic. The movie Metropolis.
Yeah,
You told me that's the only movie you can remember ever going to see with your dad.
yeah.
What else did you do with him?
He took me to the Tigers, Detroit Tigers at that time. Red Grange was one of their players. So I saw Red Grange play, but I started whining about the time we walked in the gate that I was cold, which I was.
Was it baseball or football?
Football,
Yeah.
yeah. Red Grange was an Illinois player. It was one of the first of the real stars in the pro leagues.
Mm-hmm.
And we just lived about a block and a half from the football field where they played.
Oh, wow.
There was a park with tennis courts and a couple of ball diamonds across the street from it. My friend and I, which friend I don't remember, one time damn near burned down Hodges Park, which is where the football was played. They had let the weeds grow up, and we thought it'd be fun to run it to burn some of the weeds off and use a backfire to keep it from burning.
Great idea.
I never did that if William asks about it.
Yeah, right. William and Joseph.
Yeah.
What about the girl you had a crush on in elementary school? Was it
It
high
was
school?
actually high school. I didn't know there were girls until I got to the,
Right.
about the ninth grade. But her name was Emily Cannon. And she was one of the prettiest and also one of the smartest girls in the room. And I don't think we ever dated, ever had even one date, or that she ever knew I was alive. But and one thing I do remember that at the end of the first semester of 12th grade, she got permission and dropped out of school to go to work. And she finished her schoolwork and graduated with us. But that kind of a blow to me to see her drop out like that. You know, my dad died before I graduated too, so must have been at 38 or 37 even that he died. He died of a perforating ulcer, and as peritonitis that resulted from it. And I always figured later that if the sulfonamides had come in before that happened, that they might have killed the infection and given him more years of life. He had two brothers, Uncle Frank and Uncle Lawrence. Is that all of them? Yeah, I think and two sisters, Aunt Addie and Aunt Myrtle. Aunt Myrtle's husband was in the latter days of his working career. He was advertising manager for the Commercial Appeal, the premier newspaper in Memphis. They had Julia Louise, who was older than I by about 4 or 5 years. I remember I thought she was a glamour girl. She had blonde curly hair, everything. And then Lynn Jr., that I knew.
Oh,
Do you want to tell us about your dad and Casey Jones?
He knew Casey Jones, the locomotive engineer that Casey Jones was around his name on a heavy 8-wheeler. That's where he won his fame. And there was a black fireman with him, and Casey told him to jump when he realized he wasn't going to get the train stopped before it. I guess it ran into the back end of another train. I've forgotten. But there's a famous folk song about Casey Jones. My dad worked for the railroad. When he was 21 years old, he was a warehouse freight yard foreman, handling goods and stuff. And I often wished he'd stayed with the railroad. I might have been a railroader too,
Yeah.
and might have been saying I'd rather have been than.
Mm-hmm.
But
And how old was he when you were born?
how old? He was born in '88 on February the 9th, and I was born December 1st, 1919. He must have been 29.
How old was he when you
Yeah.
when he died?
51,
51.
or that's what I remember. I've got the family Bible with some of the Fisher entries in it. And that thing under the ceramic lamp.
Yeah. And Ted, the last time he was here, did that
Yeah.
genealogy for us. And
Mhm.
it's real good.
I was going to show you something in the sun porch. What was it?
Postcards? Postcards?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's immaterial actually, but it's not too late.
I saw them.
Oh, you did? There
Yes.
wasn't anything really interesting in there, was it?
Well, there was a nice fold-out souvenir card of the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
The Pennsylvania Turnpike.
Yes,
Hot damn.
we've traveled the Pennsylvania Turnpike for many, many years.
We watched them build that from the air.
Oh,
DC-3 is about 2,500 feet above the ground.
Wow.
That was fun. That was more fun than the jets, really.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that, isn't it?
Yeah. Of course, it take about 8 hours to fly from New York to St. Louis or maybe Kansas City. And now it's 3.5 or 4 in the jets.
Yeah. Depending on which way you're going, I guess.
Yeah. And which way you're going.
Yeah. So do you remember any other toys that you had when you were growing up?
Any other one?
Toys?
Toys. I had a cowboy suit, and I think it was a Tom Mix. And I had an electric train, a Lionel, which we figured was better than the American Flyer. Actually, it wasn't, looking back, but we thought it was. And we had games, various kinds. Parcheesi was one of them, I remember. That's the reason I can beat you guys at Parcheesi.
Yeah, right.
Not really.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, the Scouts, our church sponsored a scout troop named the 49ers, Troop 49. And we had a summer camp down at, scout camp down at Eudora, Mississippi, where we went several times a year. I remember I went down there as the senior patrol leader one time with a bunch of greenhorns, tenderfoots, and came time to fix dinner, and they had given me a pound of lard and some hamburgers, meat to fix them dinner, maybe some pasta, some kind of starch. Anyway, I threw the lard in the skillet first, not realizing the hamburger wouldn't need it. I didn't throw all the lard in there, but
Consequently,
a
they all
good
had
half
heart
of it
attacks
probably.
that night.
And it was summertime, so it was bright pretty late in the evening, and it must have been almost dark, which would have been 7 o'clock maybe, or 7:30 by the time I got this to where I thought I could offer it to them. And ever after I told people that by the time they got any food, they didn't care what it was. However, nobody got sick, so I guess it wasn't too bad at that. We had a first floor to the cabin we stayed in, and a balcony with a ladder up to it. and the tenderfeet would sleep up in the balcony, and they would try to rowdy it up all night. Stephen got his eagle about 50 years after I got mine, I think.
Yeah.
Just almost to the day, well, almost to the month.
Really?
I don't remember when I got my eagle. I remember I was about 18 though, because we had an assistant scoutmaster that was determined to go to the banquet. And he picked me because he figured I could do it and he could bully me into doing it.
Right on both counts, right?
Yeah. His name was Bob Wilkinson. And he married a girl named Mary Alice. And her parents had a Chrysler Zephyr 12-cylinder sedan. And man, that was something to ride in. Really a terrific car. And they let her drive it. I don't think Bob ever drove it, but they did let her drive it.
What was
What
your Eagle
project?
project?
What?
What was your Eagle project?
I don't know if I had one even. It
Did they require them then?
may not have.
What did you have to
I
do?
seem to remember a small bridge, but I don't know if it was a project or not. What did I have to do? 21 merit badges, including certain required ones. Public health was one of them. Help me out, Steve.
Swimming?
Swimming, basketry, archery,
Citizenship?
political science.
First
maybe,
aid was required.
Geography, geology.
Meteorology is required. No, it wasn't. It was available as a merit badge. Geology, you said?
Semaphore signals, did you learn semaphore signals?
What?
Did you learn semaphore signals?
I tried, but I specialized
Morse code.
in Morse code,
Right.
one flag. I think I could still get through all of the alphabet with the semaphore though. But I'm not gonna try it. I know A was straight down and out to the right, just a little on the other flag. And B was a little bit further up to the right. And then C was straight out. Oh well.
How old were you? When you got your
18 when
Eagle?
I got it.
Eight-
Yeah, I was almost beyond the age to get it, I think. They do have a limit now on how old you can be. 18, is that
18.
right?
Yeah, I just barely made it
Yeah.
myself.
I'm sorry Joseph and William didn't have that advantage, but
Mhm.
your dad would have had pneumonia 6 more times.
You got pneumonia on a scout trip? with
No.
Stephen?
Almost.
I don't know, there was some,
You had
couple of were
some
pretty
pretty
cold.
heavy colds.
Going out there in those rivers,
Yeah.
tipping over.
I think I only went with you guys once on the trip to Osceola.
Well, you can't say you guys. You might be able to say Bill and Charles. I don't even
Oh,
know
that's
if
right, you
Charles
did.
went, but Bill did.
Yeah. Bill, I think, has only got as far as Star, didn't he?
I thought it was Life.
Might have been.
Sounds
Where'd
good.
Charles go?
Charles is in the other room.
Oh.
I think he got bored.
Well, I'm getting pretty bored myself.
He wasn't talking about.
Okay.
What do you think, Stephen?
Well, we're almost to the end of the tape anyway.
All right,
I
we'll
mean,
So can we keep
Finish
going
it.
until we get to the end of the tape?
suppose.
Could ask some more questions.
Anyone over here want to ask questions
From the audience.
from the audience?
Tell us about the time you went to scout camp with Bill and you killed the copperhead.
Oh, this was a Rotary camp that
Ah,
we went to, but it was a scout group. And they were a bunch of rowdies too. And John McFadden really read them the riot act for not doing what I had told him to get done, connection with setting up the camp and everything. And the next morning we went out and turning over rocks and stones and logs to see what was under them.
and
Well-
the technique is to turn it over and jump back real quick.
Well, one of the things that was under one of the rocks, or I guess it was a log, was a nest of copperheads. There was one about that long, which is big enough to do some damage if it bit you. And then the others were small, immature. And we killed them all because although it's ecology, a dead scout is not much help to the ecology either.
Well, name some of the books you've enjoyed reading most of all.
The one I've enjoyed reading most of all is Swiss Family Robinson. That's the only one I ever read more than once.
What about Treasure Island?
I read it, but I don't remember being particularly taken by it.
Did you read Kidnapped?
No, I don't think so.
You told me
Tim.
once, you told me once that, you thought for a long time that it was a waste of time to read fiction because you wanted to read books that told you something that was true and factual.
Did Einstein say that?
You said that.
I said that.
We can understand your confusion.
That's a good way to cover
No, I really did
Mr.
think
Tribute
you mentioned Einstein in the first part of your question.
Oh, no, I didn't. But, then you said when you read the Swiss Family Robinson, you liked it so much you decided there might be something to fiction after all.
Yeah, I guess so. I have felt that way about it.
Probably because it was like camping.
So what?
It was like camping and people did
Yeah.
things.
Well, but most of the things were far-fetched. The ostrich was on this island, but that they were marooned on. And I question whether there are many ostriches anywhere except in zoos and in Kenya, and Tanzania, and the rest of Africa. But it was really a very interesting book to me. Because as you say, it had a lot of camping lore in it too.
And you were how old when you read that?
I probably read it the first time when I was about 11 or 12. I read a lot of westerns, Stuart Edward White. I read the War of the Worlds, Wells, and then the one that Mutiny on the Bounty, and they wrote a science fiction book too, I think.
Did you read Men Against the Sea?
No.
Yeah, that's the
Is that
story.
Dana?
That's the story of Captain Bligh and the men who were put in the boat.
Oh, Pitcairn Island?
Well, that's the story about where the mutineers go. There's a trilogy.
Yeah.
Mutiny on the Bounty, Pitcairn Island follows the mutineers, and Men Against the Sea follows the men who were put in the boat.
Mm-hmm. I remember one of the, or what I remember among the earliest books I read was the Young Trailers series about young patriots in the early days of the Virginia colony and the Roanoke colony and stuff like that. I'm sure John Smith and the guy that married Priscilla wanted to, Miles Standish.
Well, did you read Huck Finn
I don't think I ever read that, Dick.
or Tom Sawyer?
I think I've read excerpts, condensations of Tom Sawyer, which is cheating, I know, but better than not getting it at all. I read a number of Mark Twain's short pieces, which give you the punchline and the comedy in it early in the game. I mean, you don't have to read through a whole book to get a few good guffaws. The one that I remember particularly was Journalism in Tennessee, where he was, whether it was Twain himself or an imaginary character of his or what, I don't know, but it was absolutely hilarious. I read it in a room, empty house, and just roared with laughter. People would have thought I was nuts if they had walked by the house. Hell, he's gone again.
What do you remember about your parents together?
Not very much. My dad was gone most of the time, either not overnight, but he was gone at work most of the time, and or either working or looking for work. He one of the things that he did to eke out a living was to buy a box of neckties and peddle them on the street. What I always regret was about the time that things began to get a little easier, because I had graduated and I was able to get some work right away. And about that time he died.
That's when you went to work at
U.S.
at
Engineers.
the Corps of Engineers?
Yeah. The U.S. Engineers had a headquarters